Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on today and checking out something that kind of piqued my interest a while ago, and I didn't get a chance to check it out on the channel, though I was saving it for it. A couple months ago, we checked out a new track from a fellow reactor composer, Key of Jeebs. And it kind of got me started thinking about other composers React to and them releasing their own music. So I started looking and seeing how many of these reactor composers are still making music. And I came across Nick Nocturnal. And I had known about Nick from his reaction stuff, but I had not heard anything that he's ever written or played before. So I'm really interested in this. The band is called TERMINA. According to the description, it says that Nick is the guitarist, bassist, keys, and backing vocals. So definitely pulling a lot of weight here. We have a lead vocalist and lyricist, and then a drummer. So yeah, Nick is basically pulling all the non-vocal melody work here. So let's dive into this and see what TERMINA is bringing to the table with the track Translucent. Oh, what a gritty time. They're taking no time, just getting right into this. Okay. I'm loving the back and forth on those vocal styles. We got the highs and the lows. Really nice layering there with just the pure cry. Was that pure cry and whisper? Dang. Talk about a hook too. Oh man, and the cleanliness of those double bass kicks. Oh, really putting in the tension there. I like the really funky grooviness as far as the rhythm in that last verse. Very crisp production as well, all across this. I'm bringing back this idea from the intro, but with strings around it this time. Yeah, so we got the halftime on the guitars and the full time on the drums. Kind of hoping for a little bit more there, but A little bit of vocal variation in our melody. Yeah, I love the harsh layering there. Yes. Okay, okay. Please tell me there's an album here. Oh man. Okay, so this is right up my alley. Um, Gnarly rhythmic ideas. The harsh vocals I can kind of take or leave. I enjoy um the sheer variety though, right? You guys know I'm not super big on harshes. I can endure certain styles, but I'm really more of a clean melodic kind of dude. So, but I do enjoy the variety. There is four, I think, different types of harshes in here, which is just really impressive to hear them on display in all the different ways. And it's not even just like we did this style for that one, this style for no. There's like a lot of diversity within specific sections of the track too. But the clean hook, right? That chorus, that is so good. I love it. Um, the breakdown, again, you guys know I'm not big on breakdowns. I think they have their place, but I also kind of feel like they're way overused. Um, but it was a breakdown, right? It did what it did. I don't think I have any big issue with it. It's just not my favorite type of bridge. We did start to introduce something that I thought was really going to be an interesting direction to move into, and we kind of cut it short heading into our final chorus. And we had a small variation on that, and you guys know how much I love variations on repeated sections, which we'll talk about more because that's not the only time it happened either. But yeah, just like so much of this is right up my alley, and I really need to listen to more of it. Um, Also layered harshes, right? Layered harshes are just so good. It's all about that texture layering, right? I love layers. If anything, layers are just so good. So let's all right. Let's like the overarching overview is done. Let's dig into some specifics here. First thing I want to dive into is just thesis statement, right? It's the very first thing you hear. Does it tell us what's going on, right? Not every song needs a thesis statement. You got a nice 10-minute epic. You're not going to be able to encapsulate that in your opening 30 seconds. But for a track like this, especially since I think it's an isolated single, I don't see anything in the description about, go buy this album or whatever. I like I said, it does just kind of feel like an isolated single here, just the latest track they've worked on. Here you go. It is a phenomenal way to immediately hook the listener in 25 seconds and say, look, if you enjoy this, we got more of it. If you don't, there's the door. We're not going to waste your time, right? It front loads what the band is about. And just phenomenal. They waste notes. They introduce a little bit of that really interesting, I think it was guitar work. It could have been some sort of synthesizer tone. Um, it introduced what the guitar was eventually going to be playing. I think there's a variation on the rhythm from our opening sound melody to what the guitar ends up playing in the verse. There's a lot of overlaps rhythmically there. So it's a nice little foreshadowing of that while also kind of just being entirely intensity building, right? So it has the energy and the drive. It has a little bit of that gritty texture. So we know we're in for something darker and faster, but we don't quite know what it sounds like yet because we have super compressed, and that compression feels like you can think of it as like a bag coming in around stuff or like a rubber band tightening everything up, and you can really feel like the contents want to explode. The song is larger and more powerful and meatier than what we are hearing right now, but something is constraining it. That's the compression, right? It's really compressed down into this narrowed field, but it wants to be bigger. And we get that, right? There's that, kind of cliche, but it's cliche because it works. It's a trope because it's so effective. where we kind of end it and we have a beat of silence, and then the song comes in, proper, the drums and the guitars and the bass. We get everything coming in. Just super punchy. The production here is phenomenal. I want to take a second to talk about the production here, actually, before we move on into more of what the music is doing. Because it is this really interesting combination of muddy and crisp that works well. So, what we have here is our vocals are very centered, very high up placed, very prominent. They're in the spotlight. Almost every single style of vocals at every moment of the song is given prominence in the mix. For better or worse, there are definitely people who are going to say the growling should be more into the music, and yeah, there's specific styles of music that really benefit from that. I don't think that it would be a detriment to do that here, but personally, I like my lead ideas to be sitting on top of the music, generally speaking, right? I'm not going to say that it has to be all the time. There's definitely tracks I enjoy where our lead element is buried a little bit, and it's usually for thematic reasons I enjoy it. But for just that purely casual, not really caring about the intricacies of the music, I want the lead element, which in a lot of rock and metal is going to be our vocalist, front and center. I want it audible, especially when we get to stuff like those low growls that we had. I want those to be clear and crisp. I want to be able to hear what's going on. And that's been one of my biggest issues with growling and lower harshes my entire metal journey, is that I can't discern what's happening. And I just really enjoy the cleanliness of the production on the vocals for that specific section. And of course, making the vocals super punchy when we go clean to get that really strong vocal hook there in our chorus. So yeah, the production on the vocals is nice, and like I said, it's very crisp and clean. The drums, we also get some of that crispness. That's a hard word to say. We get the quality of crisp in the drums. The bass kicks, the snare are just, they have this strong snap, crack. That's the word I want. The snare has a strong crack to it, and the bass kick just punches through all the noise that's going on above it, which is going to be the guitars, the bass, the keyboard work. There is no moment when I was trying to figure out, is that a bass kick? Is that a bass guitar? Is it playing quickly? Is it just like hitting and reverberating? No, everything is very crisp and clear. There's no question about what our drummer is doing. And through that, it allows me in a little bit to talk about some of the cool things that the drummer is doing and why the drums work so perfectly with everything else that's going on here. Now, our guitar and bass work, this is where things get a little more difficult. They're muddy, but they're muddy in a way that works. And usually I would have a problem with this, right? Especially when everything else is so crisply produced. Having these one group of instruments, which is in all effects our atmospheric and foundational instruments, being so muddy would not really work for me. But there's something about this style that it's fine. And I want to emphasize fine because I don't want to say that it's great. And I also want to clarify, especially if anyone from the band is watching this, I don't mean that it needs to be changed. This is typically a disclaimer I put up whenever I provide any criticism, is that what I'm about to say would fundamentally change the song, which would make it a different song, which would not make it Translucent by Termina. And in such, I don't provide this as criticisms in order to improve. They're criticisms purely with one goal in mind, which would make the song more palatable to my ears. These are ideas that would make one person happier. By no means would I ever say to go through with any of this. But there is something very interesting about the guitar work in that it is muddy. And like I said, it's fine. I don't think it detracts from the song. In fact, because everything that the guitar and bass does is purely on the atmospheric or foundational side, We have a lot of chordal stuff going on in there, especially in our chorus. We do have a moving melody line in our verse, but it's also more textural than melody, primarily because of the production aim. I believe that this was intentional, and this is why I think it works kind of. When we specifically look at the verse, our guitar work is mostly hovering around one note. We have a middle note, and maybe we'll go, one and a half steps above and one and a half steps below, and it kind of gives us five notes to work with. We just kind of play fast, do 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 do, something like that, and then at the end of a line, we'll put a little accenting lick. We'll have, the harmonics or some sort of squealy sound or just something to punctuate the end of that, and we'll do that four times, and at the end of this larger phrase we have a bigger, longer lick that we might put at the end to punctuate the phrase as a whole. And those higher punctuations do cut through everything. You can certainly hear them, but the note itself typically doesn't have a purpose to it, both in the lower and the higher ones, because there's nothing really around it to be compared to. We don't have a strong sense of chordal movement in the chorus. I mean, sorry, in the verse. We do have one in the chorus. In the verse, we don't have a counterpoint melodically to be worried about that. Our vocalist is completely textual, right? We do have perceived pitch. They have a lower one and a higher one. And I do think that one time maybe we used a pitched note with compression on it for a single tone that we hold out, but it's again not used often. It's sort of a one-off idea. So there's no other pitched elements going along around this guitar usually in the verses. So it really just is there for the texture of it all, which the texture is heavy, meaty, gritty, punchy, and the guitar and bass do that well. They bring that to the table. They fill out the sound that the drums and vocals aren't. And they just make it a very wide, large production. But I would really like to hear the riff itself. And maybe it wouldn't improve the song. Maybe TERMINA hears me and they're like, oh, well, let's make that version. And I listen to it and I'm like, actually, because it lost its punchiness, it's not as good. Maybe the muddiness also helped it widen out. So, like I said, I don't think it would improve it, but I'm curious of what the riff is. I find it really difficult to hear. And part of that could also just be me. I'm sure that there are people who might be more seasoned in the grittier, muddier style of production that would be like, oh no, I hear every individual note, and that's just something that I got to acclimate to. That is something that I've had to do a lot over this metal journey, is getting more and more comfortable with varying levels of distortion and grittiness and fuzz and muddy production values, because all of these help with the aspects of weight and width and power and just that raw metal sound. uh so like I said, I don't think any of this would improve the track at all. In fact, I think if you cleaned it up, it would actually detract from it. It would remove some of the oomph. But there was some really cool guitar ideas going on there that I couldn't hear. And maybe that's my ear, maybe that's the hardware that I'm using, maybe it's just intended by design through the production. But it is something that I wish I could have heard more of. But we're going to get off of that because I think that's really my only negative here. And like I said, not even negative, right? I honestly think that if you take the criticism in hand, you're going to make the song worse. So, not really negative, just not wholly positive criticism I have. Element of this analysis. The drum work. This is something I really want to touch on. I'd mentioned I wanted to do it. I really love the clarity of the drums because they allow me to hear what's going on. Listen to the bass kicks, because the snare and the cymbals are mostly laying down the time signature. The bass kicks are where some of the funky ideas come into, and it actually helped me hear what the guitar was doing because, especially in the verses and breakdown, the guitars and the bass, the guitars and the bass kick were pretty much in rhythmic tune together all the time. So really getting to hear what the bass kick was doing was helping me hear a little bit of what the guitars were doing when I couldn't. But there's some really neat, funky rhythms in here. like a lot of it are these really tight packed groups of like 4/16 notes together. But there's also some really interesting concept because it's not just straight gallops, right? There is a rhythmic weighting that happens where maybe we get a pack of four and then a pack of four and then a pack of three and then a pack of one into a pack of two, and you get this really quick hiccup there that pulls us into the next idea. And of course, this isn't exactly what's happening. I'm just kind of hypothesizing it. That's not a word, because I don't remember exactly. It was a pretty complex idea. I would need to have pen and paper and another listen to it to write down the rhythmic groupings here. But it's just really interesting listening to because it feels wholly nonlinear. There is a larger pattern to it. I never picked up exactly how big the pattern was, but it is much larger than 1 or 2 bar pattern, at least to my ears. And the cool thing is, though, is that despite it being as odd as it is, it fits really well into their 4/4 groove in to a point where if you're not paying attention to it, you're probably not going to think it's too impressive. And that's kind of the point. I absolutely love when people make music that is complex. And I'm not talking about like the most complex music here, just intermediately complex, just something beyond, four on the floor or alternating every other hit for accents, just adding a little bit extra oomph to it, but still making it super palatable. So that if you're not paying attention to it, you don't even really notice that there's any extra complexity to it at all. And it's really difficult to walk that line where your average listener can just jam along with it, and maybe a more critical listener can be like, oh, there's something interesting going on here. And to walk that line, like I said, it's very difficult. You're usually going to fall into one or the other, where it is just a bit too simple for your critical listeners or just a bit too complex for your casuals. So the drummer here just did a phenomenal job. Maybe the drummer. I don't know who composed all of this. We have the performers, we have the producers, we have mixers, engineers, but we don't have a composer listing. So I don't know if everybody just wrote their own parts, but the thing is that rhythmically it lines up with what the guitars and bass are doing, so they're sharing the parts, so somebody had to come up with the rhythm first. Um, but yeah, it's just, I love it. It is a really solid rhythm that's full of groove, but also interesting enough that makes me want to bring out pen and paper and be like, oh, what's going on here? Right? Really breaking it down a little bit. And I think I saw that Nick had a guitar playthrough of this, so I might go and do that. That might actually clear up some of the guitar tone here because we can amplify the guitar tone itself since it's the emphasis of the video, while also giving me a chance to visually see the rhythmic component here, which is going to help me understand it as well. Um, but yeah, just like a lot of the drum rhythms are really nice in that they keep the groove, but are complex enough to seem interesting, to me at least, which kind of sounds conceited. Makes me sound arrogant. It was complex enough for me to be interested. That's not how I mean it, but I mean that is kind of the idea that it's groove and complex, and I love that. We get into the chorus though. Not really a lot to say here. The drums kind of back it down a little bit as far as complexity to drive home more of a pop rock style of playing with a little bit of extra complexity to it. Our guitars, all of them, shift down to just playing chordal things. We kind of go more towards the pop rock metalcore style of chorus where it's just a chord bed and soaring vocals that sit above it. But the thing is that it works. It's a tried and true method. It is tropey that we go from like rhythmic and gritty to clean and beautiful. But like I said before, with the thing with tropes is that people do them often because they work. They don't become tropes or cookie cutter or whatever you want to call them. I try to stay away from the derogatory terms because I don't really enjoy them. But I think tropes is sort of a neutral term. They don't become tropes because they're bad. They become tropes because they work, and people say, "Oh, they work. Let me try that," and then it just becomes the norm for the style. But like I said, it only happens because they're well. I mean, because they do what they do well. So having the contrast here is beautiful. We get to see these two different sides of the band. The two sides complement each other sonically. We have a moment to relax and breathe from the heavier, grittier stuff. It just works really well at creating nice highs and lows to the track that allow it to feel more like a film where we have these rises and dips. And we have moments to have our breath taken away and moments to find time to breathe. That is what this style of music is all about. Although that's not to say that you really have a chance to breathe here because these vocals are breathtaking. I love the vocal range here. We go from these gritty, gnarly growls and low harshes into this beautiful, higher ranged, um, clean vocal style. And like I said, the melody that's chosen has a strong hook to it. Yes, it's more of a poppy hook, but you know what? Once again, the style works, right? I have the vocal melody stuck in my head. I'm going to want to listen to this track again specifically for that chorus. It is just done insanely well. And the thing that I absolutely love, and this is something that is one of my favorite techniques that Periphery utilizes, one of the things that I really love about them is the use of perfectly timed tension. At the end of the chorus, instead of resolving neatly, we actually resolve to a note that is half a step down, I think, which not only doesn't give the resolution that we're expecting, but even adds on top of that and grinds against the rest of the notes that are present because we are now playing out of key. And we're playing out of key by only a half step. And it just gives this real strong grit to the end of the chorus that leads us into the next verse, which is already grittier. I don't necessarily think that this ending worked on every occasion, but specifically coming out of our first verse or our first chorus into our second verse, it was a beautiful movement from that harmonious consonant chorus back into that gritty, heavy verse. Just a really great way to go about doing that by giving us that false resolution there. So yeah, just the chorus was gorgeous. And I guess the final thing there is to talk about is the breakdown. And like I said, I don't have any strong feelings about it. It's a breakdown, right? I think I was moving along with it. That's the whole point of it. But the idea of a breakdown is just to remove complexity and become the most basic, lowest notes possible. Sometimes even the slowest as you can. However, I was a big fan of that polyrhythmic idea that was going on between the drums and the guitar. And I counted it out, and I think during the reaction, I had said that it was halftime versus full time. I'm not entirely sure about that because to me it felt like there was a drag, which makes me think that we were looking at like dotted quarter notes against quarter notes, against the beat, which would be very close to halftime versus full time, but just not. We would actually have a discrepancy there. But I don't remember hearing the discrepancy either. So it's definitely something I have to go back and check on a second listen and see what's going on there. But there is a rhythmic uh, separation there going on between the two instruments that I really liked at the beginning of it that I think was resolved when we went into the slower section not too long after. And I mean, I'm sure at a concert, those breakdowns are awesome with all the energy around you and the crowd and everything. But, like I said earlier, breakdowns just don't work for me. Maybe as an isolated idea, but I just hear so much of it. And to me, it's just a moment for the song to get slow and get heavy, get slow and get low. And I don't know, just not my cup of tea, I suppose is what I'm saying. But I really enjoy everything else about the track. So I can overlook it. Like I said, it wasn't bad. It's not something that detracts from the experience for me. It's just a moment when I'm like, okay, I can't wait till we get back to the rest of the track though. But as usual, I want to preface this, that is just my opinion. I'm not saying to remove it. I'm not saying to change it. I'm not saying to do anything else with your bridges. It's just, I'm just not a big fan of breakdowns. Um, I think that's everything that I wanted to talk about. All the instruments, all the sections, production. Let's dive into some lyrics. Uh, so it starts with the word focus. Mental dialysis, separate me from all the fallacies plaguing within, search for a catalyst to awaken my dark intentions, option paralysis. Okay. Option paralysis, everlasting as multiple calluses ride my skin, my psychoanalysis echoes deprivation. Let me see. Terminus. Because these are the ones that are in the description, but they don't have section breaks to let me know what's going on there. So I'm going to see if they do have them on this other. Yes, okay, much better. It helps just so I can group ideas together. Otherwise, it's just a poem, and I kind of take it all in as one, which isn't always bad, but can also just be a little bit more difficult to analyze as maybe tone or intention or formatting change and they indicate different ideas and stuff like that. So yeah, our verse one, we have a parallelism here. We have mental dialysis and then 2 lines, and then option paralysis and 2 lines. And I like how we utilize this rhyming frame here. The 2 lines don't rhyme in any way that I can see. There is a soft rhyme. There's a soft rhyme somewhere. I can't remember what it is. But anyways, our primary rhyme is with this opening idea, the mental dialysis, option paralysis. We even have a rhythmic structure there. The mental dialysis, separate me from the fallacies plaguing within, search for a catalyst to awaken my dark intentions. So it says that, I want to be removed from the negative aspects of me. All right, it says the fallacies that plague within, the things that stop me from being whole, that, well, make me human. Because to err is to human. It says I want to be separate from my fallacies, from my shortcomings, from my failures. So yeah, it says I want to be separated from the part that makes me human. He says I want to search for something that will awaken my dark intentions. Option paralysis, which is having too many options and not being able to make one. Everlasting as multiple calluses riddle my skin, my psychoanalysis echoes deprivation. All right, pre chorus. I've been dead inside for far too long now. Emptiness has since become my home. Tried to clear my mind, but I can't focus. No sensation in this heart of stone. All right, and this is a nice callback to our intro. We start off the track just saying focus. So they want to separate themselves from their failures. They want to make themselves less human and allow themselves to take part into their dark intentions. They have things they want to do that are not great, happy, positive, but they can't. Probably because of the option paralysis, but a little bit because of the fallacies. They might lack a sense of self, a strong sense of self to push through with stuff like that. They might have self doubt. And then it says, my psychoanalysis echoes deprivation. Just says that the way I see myself is that I'm missing things. Doesn't clarify on it, just missing things. I'm deprived of elements. It says it echoes, might even mean that there's multiple ideas of deprivation. Depraved of this, depraved of this, depraved of this is my psychoanalysis, so I have an echo of deprivation. And then the pre-chorus just says that, I'm dead inside, I'm empty, I can't clear my mind, and my heart is stone. Pretty straightforward there. We have somebody who is reaching, emotional, well, deprivation, to be to line back up with our opening verse. And they feel like there's just nothing. They're dead inside, and maybe they're hoping that these darker intentions will help them feel something. The chorus says, the sickness trapped inside has left me paralyzed. It's nothing like I've ever felt, no way to justify, no place to hide my lies, let time collapse upon itself. Our post chorus says, I can't focus. Our verse 2 says, I can't keep my head above the water, shackled to fear and doubt, reluctance drowns me out of this hopeless tale. I'm the author, a self-inflicted curse taking me for all I'm worth. So yeah, wrapping this up, and this verse 2 really pulls in the ideas of self-deprecation, a lack of self, authority, allowing someone to feel like they have power over their life, to make decisions that they have. And there's probably also some mental issues as well with what do I say, self actualization, right? Maybe there's a voice within that's a voice of a parent or something that keeps them down, always ridicules them and stuff like that. And I think this continues on with that idea. It says that they have trouble keeping their head above water. Fear and doubts are basically everything that keeps them down. It says that they're shackled by them, and reluctance drowns them. And it says, I'm the hopeless tale of the author. So it's their own mind that has this fear, that has this doubt, that has this reluctance that keeps them from moving forward and continuing on with their life. They call it a self-inflicted curse because it is their mind that stops them from being self-actualized, that stops them from doing what they want to do because of self-doubt. The bridge says, make me hurt, make me peel my skin back, ignite with the flames of defeat, scorch my insides till there's nothing left. Despite all progress made, my spirit remains translucent. So yeah, going back to the idea of the heart of stone, the bridge, it feels like this person just wants to feel something. They're so empty, they're so destroyed, they're so held back, full of fear and doubt that even pain would be a cathartic release of some sort that would feel positive. It says, make me hurt, peel my skin back and look what's inside and set it on fire. It says, ignite my skin with the flames of defeat, constantly feeling like they can't accomplish anything. Scorching the inside. Okay, so this whole section, I don't think it's a request to be made hurt. I think this is a literal request, or not a request, a metaphorical analysis of how the self-defeating ideas, the fear and the doubt and the reluctance actually feels like to them. That these ideas, the way that their brain works, has made them feel like they're always hurting. It feels like it's pulled their skin back and used the flames of defeat to scorch their insides until there's nothing left within, which is actually what was stated earlier. It says, I've been dead inside for too long. Emptiness is my home. So I think this bridge is what all this fear and doubt and lack of self actualization and self confidence. I think that's the word I've been looking for this whole time. All this lack of confidence has created is this feeling that they've been ripped apart and burned and scorched until there's nothing left. It says, despite any progress I've made, my spirit is still translucent. And I don't know if that means that you can see right through it and that it's easy to determine what's going on. Like you see this person, you see their spirit, and you can just immediately say, oh, this is somebody who's broken, right? Or if they mean that their spirit lacks the will to be seen, because to be able to see something would be opaque. And their spirit is so weak that most people see right through them. They feel invisible in life, even though they continue to make progress and to try to grow and become a more actualized person. So yeah, I definitely think this track is a song about mental health. Not necessarily about trying to find it, but just the way that somebody might feel if they deal with these types of things, especially maybe from early in life. And I think that the grittiness and dirtiness of the song definitely line up with some of that. The chorus, I don't think necessarily thematically ties to the lyrics. It's just more of the way that they wanted to write the song. But I think the breakdown, slowing down, actually really works along with the bridge of showing how this has been a mechanical process of slowly destroying everything within until there's nothing left. The music has been destroyed. The complexity is gone. The speed and intensity are gone. The idea of defeat scorching everything within until there's nothing left. At this point, the song just kind of stops. And there is that little moment, that glimmer of hope that I really thought was going to lead to something. It was about 2, maybe 4 bars long. It was a keyboard idea, and I really wanted it to go somewhere else. And instead, we went right back into the chorus. And I mean, maybe that works thematically, but I really would have liked the idea of the song to approach something a little different and continue on in a new direction in this bridge before coming back to the chorus. But that wasn't how they wanted to make it, and that is perfectly fine. Like I said, if they had done my idea there, it would not have been Termina by, or Translucent by Termina. So those are my thoughts on Translucent by Termina. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this track, if you enjoyed it or not, anything that stood out to you, anything you'd like to correct me on or add on to what I said in my analysis. Drop me those comments. Above the comment box is a description box, and there's a link to Linktree. It takes you to this menu right here, has everything related to the channel. You can find merch, join a Discord, follow me on Twitter, support the channel with a Patreon, get some special selections in here, and a bunch of other stuff. Go ahead and check it out. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Greatly appreciate all 3 of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. We will not be back tomorrow with videos. However, patrons, you do have a live stream at 11 a.m. EST. It'd be 2 hours as usual. Check the links in Discord and Patreon for that. Monday, we will come back. I will do 2 more of these, I think, of just my own selection, whatever I want to do. Tuesday, we will be back on track with last week's theme. We're going to finish off the 4 tracks for Blank of the Blank theme and continue on with the special selections as we were going to. We'll be back on track. All right. And remember, be critical, not cynical with the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.